Good evening and welcome to the Art Deco seminar this evening. Especially thanks to joining us on this very hot evening. I hope you make it through. Tonight we are joined by Georgia Morley, who is going to give us a talk about Art Deco, the golden age of poster design, and we are very excited to have her with us. If you don't know me, you haven't seen my face around, I'm Emma and I'm on the Art Deco Society Committee and I'm your host this evening. I know we're all waiting for the talk very eagerly, but I just want to go through a few housekeeping rules first of all. Firstly, if you would like the captions on, if you click the CC live transcription on your toolbar, you will get captions provided automatically. The next thing to mention is that this is a webinar format, so you can see me and Georgia, but we can't see you and no one else can see you either. So do kick back and relax in your whatever clothes you're wearing in this hot day, a bikini, swimming shorts, I don't know. Perhaps you are lucky enough to be sat in a pool watching this. It'd be lovely. We will follow up Georgia's talk with a Q&A session at the end as well. So if you do have any questions, then pop them in the chat or the Q&A box and I will ask them at the end. And that's it, I think. I would just ask everyone when you do pop any questions or comments in just to be respectful of other people. And I think that's it. So, as I said, we are very lucky this evening to have Georgia with us. Welcome, Georgia. And she, as you may well know, she is the Senior Curator at London Transport Museum, and she's worked at the museum since 2015, which makes her sound like an old hand. As well as the Art Deco poster exhibition that we're going to hear about tonight, she has also worked on How to Make a Poster, Legacies, London Transport's Caribbean Workforce, and Hidden London, the exhibition, and along with Designology and the prize for illustration. So quite a few over your years at the museum. I should also add that she was this sounds really geeky, but it's actually rather fabulous. The project curator for moquette, which is the textiles that are used on the tube train, which is brilliant. So any textile questions, your way, Georgia. With that, I will switch off my camera, and if you would like to share your screen, go for it.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Emma. I'll just share my screen now. Okay, hopefully you can all see that now. So thank you so much for coming. My name is Georgia Morley, and it's really nice to see you today on one of the hottest days I think we've ever had. I'm surprised you're not all on the beach drinking pina coladas somewhere, so I'm really honoured that you're here today. So as Emma mentioned, I'm a Senior Curator at London Transport Museum, and I'm here today to talk to you about our exhibition, Art Deco, the Golden Age of Poster Design. So in this talk, I will briefly cover London Transport Museum, the curatorial team, and my role at the museum, a behind-the-scenes insight into curating an exhibition, the key themes and narrative for our Art Deco exhibition, and I'll also highlight some key artists. These are mostly my favourite artists. The talk should be about 40 minutes, and then we should have about 15 minutes for questions at the end. So firstly, I thought I'd tell you a bit about the museum and my work here. So London Transport Museum is the world's leading museum of urban transport. We are based in Covent Garden at the Old Flower Market, which was built in 1871, and the museum actually moved into the building in 1980. The museum explores the link between transport and the growth of London, its culture and society since 1800. Our collection is designated outstanding by Arts Council England, And it includes 500,000 objects, and we're still collecting. We have some of the locomotives which powered the world's first underground railway, and also one of the most important collections of 20th century poster art. This is me. I am part of the wider curatorial team at London Transport Museum, which is made up of 17 members of staff, and we also have a collaborative PhD student at the moment. The team is split into 3 different distinct areas. So we have vehicles and engineering, the very kind of dusty, dirty side of the work. And then we have collections management, which is more about the care of our collections and conservation. And then we also have collections development, which is my area of focus. So I mostly look at exhibitions and work on gallery development, as well as collecting new objects. As Emma mentioned, I started working for London Transport Museum in 2015. So I've been here for 11 years now. And during that time, I've worked on a number of different roles. Emma mentioned a few of these exhibitions already, but the 2 photographs at the top are from an exhibition called Designology. And this was about the designed environment on the transport network. And this exhibition was up in around 2017. And then I worked on Hidden London, the exhibition. So we actually have tours of disused and abandoned stations, which is also called Hidden London, confusingly. So this was an exhibition within the museum. And again, it was about the kind of disused stations on the network. And this exhibition was up in 2019. And then it went on quite a long time because of COVID. I've also worked on London Transport at War, which is the 2 photographs at the top, and that was a permanent gallery redevelopment. And then the 2 photographs at the bottom are from an exhibition called Legacies. And this was celebrating the contribution of Caribbean staff to the running of the transport network. This exhibition was in collaboration with an advisory board and subject specialists, and you can see some of the advisory board members in the photograph on the bottom right. So now on to the Art Deco exhibition. So this was the first exhibition where I led on the concept and development. Usually we work in a team of 2 or 3, but it was just me for this one, which was equal parts exciting and completely terrifying. But I did enjoy it in the end. So in this exhibition, we explore the development of Art Deco, its impact on London's public transport, and its lasting legacy. So as you'll probably all know, last year we celebrated 100 years since the 1925 Paris exhibition. So we felt it was really important to mark this pivotal moment in history. So next, I'll tell you about curating the Art Deco exhibition. From start to finish, I worked on the project for about 2 years. So there's quite a lot of blood, sweat and tears in this exhibition. I started with an idea, developed the concept, thought about the different audiences who might visit the exhibition, as well as the key messages and stories I wanted to tell. I then had to consider the loans. So we have to look at where there are gaps in our collection and narrative and reach out to different lending institutions. So for Art Deco, we have 10 different lenders, including the V&A, the Fitzwilliam Museum, National Motor Museum, and the Sainsbury Centre. We also have some private lenders and some smaller museums and galleries. There is a loan, excuse me, there's a loan from the one and only Dr. Emma Baston as well, Art Deco Society UK Treasurer. She lent us this beautiful compact, this kind of turquoise and black compact, which is in one of the showcases in the exhibition. I also raided my parents' attic and found this lovely 1920s chainmail purse, which belonged to my grandmother. So there's kind of a personal element to the exhibition as well. These 3 photographs are from a loan from the Shoemakers Museum, and these were show cards that were used by clerks.
Oh no, it's all right. No,
Is
it's
that okay?
okay. Don't worry, you're moving forward again.
Okay, sorry. Did it stop moving for a minute? Okay,
It
sorry
stopped for
about
me, but
that.
it's okay. I think it's all right
Okay,
now.
brilliant. Okay, so we start with an object long list, and the object long list was around 500 objects in the end. So I had to cut it down quite a lot. We actually have around 30,000 posters at our storage site in Acton, as well as 7,000 artworks. So it's a huge amount to choose from. We worked in collaboration with Art Deco Society UK. So Lucy Jane Santos and Emma Baston feature in our film commission as subject specialists. And Emma also did a brilliant talk at the museum and helped immensely with promoting the exhibition in the press. You can see this film commission in the exhibition. So after working on an object list, I worked on an interpretation plan. I decided that the exhibition would be thematic, so split into different themes, but with a consideration of chronology. So it starts with the origins of Art Deco and finishes with the legacy. The final object list was about 150 objects. That's kind of all we have space for in our temporary gallery space. That's mostly posters, as well as some artworks, some 3D objects, photographs, and some films. Around a third of the posters in the exhibition have never been on display before, so it's a great opportunity to be able to show these posters. So then we worked on the design for the exhibition. This includes layouts of the exhibition, so everything has to be really carefully considered. Everything has to be kind of measured out, and the gaps between posters have to be all uniform, and we have a kind of uniform height for all of our labels as well to make them accessible to all of our audiences. For the look and feel for the exhibition, we wanted it to be quite glamorous and luxurious, so we decided on this kind of dark red kind of burgundy color with a gold trim. This was very Marmite. So some of our colleagues absolutely loved the color scheme and others were less keen. I then wrote the exhibition text, which was around 15,000 words in the end. So felt like a small book. We created an audio described guide. So we worked with a company called Soundscribe and members from London Sight Loss Council to create a guide for visitors who are blind and visually impaired. And this is a workshop with some of those members from the London Sight Loss Council. And the audio description guide is both in the gallery as QR codes and it's also online. So visitors can go around and scan these QR codes and you get a 2 to 3 minute description of the poster or artwork in front of you. It also tells you a little bit of background about the artist, as well as the time period in which that poster was created. We then worked on conservation and mounting. This can take quite a few months to work on the conservation. We don't have an in-house conservation team, so we mostly work with freelance conservators and mount makers. Some larger museums like the V&A British Museum, they have kind of whole conservation studios, but because we're a slightly smaller museum, we work with people, external people outside of the museum. So here you can see a 1930s vending machine sign from Leicester Square Underground Station. This is on display in the exhibition. And this really needed a good clean. So it was quite dusty. It had kind of some residue from when it was on display at Leicester Square Station. So the bronze needed a good polish. And also it was not lit. So the sign was lit by one of our conservators. We also worked with a specialist paper conservator who cleaned and repaired our posters and artworks. And then all of our posters and artworks are sent to framers to be mounted. We then transported all of our objects from our storage site to the museum using fine art handlers. In other words, trying to fit a really large van into a very small loading bay in a very busy Covent Garden. So it's always quite stressful. We usually do this between 6 and 7 a.m. in the morning, mostly so that it's quiet on the streets, but we also have to do it before the museum opens to the public at 10 a.m. We then have 2 weeks of installing objects in the gallery. This is a photograph of a couple of my colleagues, as well as some fine art handlers who are installing the artwork. They are actually on a video call with a lending institution who is supervising the installation of this Alphonse Mucha artwork. So this was actually the first time that we'd worked on it's called like virtual curating. So usually you'd have someone from a museum come and actually watch you install a poster or artwork on the wall to make sure it's sitting correctly, make sure the lighting is correct. However, because this lending institution was quite far away, they decided to do a video call instead. So my colleague on the left is on the video call. And you can also see that we have marked out on the wall with masking tape where the other artworks would go to make sure that everything fits correctly. So after everything's been installed, we then work on the lighting. So because most of the objects in the exhibition are paper, we need to have a maximum light level so that they don't get light damage while they're on display. So you'll probably notice when you go to museums and galleries, the lighting is quite low, and that's for conservation reasons. So it's to make sure that the objects are preserved for the future. The gallery is also temperature and humidity controlled, again, for the conservation of our objects to make sure they are at the optimum conditions. And we do checks of all of the objects every 2 weeks. We then had a press preview and a lovely private view that you can see here. And we opened to the public on the 21st of November, 2025. So now onto the content for the Art Deco exhibition. So the exhibition is arranged into 4 different sections. The first section is called Origins and Golden Age of Poster Design. The second section is Leisure and Pleasure. The third section is Design and Architecture, and it finishes off with a section called Legacy. So we start the exhibition with an introduction and description of Art Deco. Art Deco in poster design is characterized by clean lines, simple geometry, and bold colors. The style worked particularly effectively in graphic art and coincided with a period when pictorial posters were one of the main forms of mass communication. So this was really before TV and radio advertising. During this period, London Underground commissioned a large number and variety of posters to promote its network, and many of these demonstrated or were influenced by Art Deco style. Moving across to the first section, where we explore the origins of Art Deco. So this is mostly covering the Paris 1925 exhibition. Whilst elements of the Art Deco style had existed since the 1910s, the 1925 Paris exhibition launched Art Deco on a global scale. This hugely successful World Fair showcased modern architecture, industrial design, and decorative art from all over Europe and beyond. It attracted 16 million visitors over its 6-month run. We then move on to look at the connection between Art Deco and transport in London during the 1920s and 30s. Posters were first used to advertise London's bus, tram, and underground services in the early 1900s. By the 1920s, the Underground had built itself a reputation as the leading patron of high-quality poster art in the UK. Many of the artists commissioned by the Underground were influenced by modern European art movements of the early 20th century, including Art Deco, Cubism, Futurism, and Vorticism. So when you're actually in the exhibition, you'll see that quite a lot of the posters on display have elements of Art Deco, but you can also see some influences from Futurism, Cubism, sometimes Surrealism. So there's a bit of a combination of different styles. The person most responsible for advancing British graphic style of the Art Deco era was this man, Frank Pick. From 1908 to 1940, Pick oversaw London Transport's publicity, becoming the first chief executive of London Transport in 1933. By the mid-1920s, the post has begun winning recognition in international advertising competitions and exhibitions. Frank Pick was committed to good design, so posters were primarily commissioned to encourage greater use of the transport services, but Pick also wanted to provide excitement to life in London. He turned underground stations into a venue for constantly changing displays of posters and brought modern art to the masses, not just those who could afford to go to museums and galleries. So one of the artists that Pitt commissioned was Vera Willoughby. She's actually one of my favourite artists, and this is probably my favourite poster in the exhibition. It's quite reminiscent of the heat wave that we've got going on at the moment. But my travel on the buses is definitely not as glamorous as these people look. So Vera Willoughby was a British illustrator, painter, and poster artist. She studied at the Slade School of Fine Art, where she developed a distinct style with both Cubist and Art Deco elements. Willoughby designed posters for the London Underground from 1928 to 1935, so we have 13 of her designs in our collection. And her daughter, Althea Willoughby, was also an artist and designer, so she followed in her mother's footsteps. This poster is called General Joy, and it was designed in 1928, and it really emphasises the joyous combination of speed and freedom on London's open-top buses. Although at the time, these buses probably only would have been travelling about 12 miles an hour, maybe, maximum. So the wind in the hair might be a slight over-exaggeration. The sunburst rays are a defining feature of Art Deco, and they represent energy and vitality. So Frank Pick was instrumental in commissioning more designers who were women. The first poster by a woman was for the Tramps in 1910. And by 1930, over 25% of all underground publicity was designed by women. There was no other British company or government agency that promoted female designers to the same extent. It wasn't all positive, though. Male designers were still paid more for their work, and generally they achieved greater fame. We actually had an exhibition about female poster designers called Poster Girls in 2017 to 2018, where we could highlight a lot of the female designers' work, because a lot of them have been, unfortunately, forgotten about, not written about in publications. Another key artist commissioned by Frank Pick was Jean Dupas. The French artist was a poster designer and illustrator, as well as being involved in fashion magazine. Dupas's work became linked with the Art Deco style through his involvement in the 1925 Paris exhibition and his decor for Art Deco ocean liners, including the Normandy. So Dupas had quite a signature style. The women in his work typically had this cropped hair, almond-shaped eyes, and elongated arms and necks. So quite kind of mannequin looking, I think. The title of this poster is "Where is the Bower Beside the Silver Thames?" So this is actually a line from the concluding paragraph of the poem by Robert Seymour Bridges from 1893. The poem describes a serene, almost mythical scene along the riverbank, and I think Dupas really captured this feeling. The next section explores day trips and the glamour of the Jazz Age. London Transport recognised the potential of the poster to not only promote travel by public transport for commuting, but in spare time as well. Art Deco designs encourage passengers to travel by focusing on the destination rather than the mode of travel. A trip to the zoo, countryside, or sporting event was all within reach. Leisure activities became increasingly important to the public during the 1920s and 30s. At this time, new public holidays and paid annual leave meant that more people were enjoying leisure time and heading off on outings and holidays. London Transport's posters reflected these newfound freedoms, offering a wealth of leisure opportunities reachable by the city's public transport. Leisure travel across London and beyond was promoted to increase off-peak travel. Posters advertising days out by bus, tram, and tube were originally printed to fill empty advertising space, but they soon became important in their own right as a way of filling empty seats outside of rush hour. A key Art Deco artist in this section is André Edouard Marty. I think I might have just picked all of my favourite artists for these key artists. But Marty was a Parisian artist who worked as an illustrator, engraver, and a theatre designer. His illustrations often featured in fashion magazines of the time, including Vogue and Vanity Fair. And Marty designed posters for the Ballet Russe in 1910, and he also designed sets and costumes for the theatre, cinema, and ballet. Marty was appointed to the jury of the 1925 Paris exhibition, and he was commissioned by London Transport to design posters in the 1930s. These 3 posters were intended to encourage day trips to London's parks. And these posters would have been on the underground, usually pasted on the glass partitions between seats. So often they would, London Transport would commission posters that were quite small. They're called panel posters, and they'd usually advertise things like Wimbledon, other sporting events, regattas, or particular seasonal events. Many Art Deco transport posters also encourage trips to the riverside or further afield to the British seaside. The River Thames has always offered Londoners a variety of day trip destinations, so picturesque scenes have publicised the river's more tranquil spots and historical sites, while posters for events such as the boat race and regattas have promoted the riverside as a social hub for entertainment and enjoyment. You can see Kew Gardens in the background of this poster. Apparently, Kew Gardens had the hottest temperature in May ever today, 35.1 degrees or something. New tourist destinations along the coast also became popular, with millions travelling to beaches with their buckets and spades. Southend-on-Sea was the only seaside resort advertised on the Underground. This was because it was the only seaside resort that you could get to by Underground and then steam train. This is maybe where we all want to be today, by the seaside. The bathing belle often took centre stage in transport posters, presenting the seaside as a place to be for fashionable young people. She was an aspirational figure, shown modelling swimwear that was often quite daring for the time. The exhibition then moves on to explore the glamour of the Jazz Age. The Jazz Age was a period of vibrant cultural change in the 1920s and 30s. This period saw a rise in consumer culture with the availability of new fashions and accessories, and a focus on creating a stylish and modern look. London Transport posters highlighted the glamorous new fashions and activities associated with the Jazz Age. A key artist in this section is Frederick Charles Herrick. So Herrick studied at Leicester College of Arts and Crafts and the Royal College of Art. He designed the famous Wembley Lion logo for the British Empire exhibition in 1924. And this poster is from 1927. It's one of a series of 5 designed by Herrick. each poster used a different sense to illustrate the different ways that London could be experienced. Reminiscent of 1920s fashion magazines, the posters incorporate elements of Art Deco while showing the era's design trends. They were designed to appeal to modern, stylish young women and men, inviting them to enjoy the city. So this is just a close-up of that poster. And for the hearing poster, a closer look at the figures in the central arc reveal its musical theme. So hopefully you can see, but in the center, there's an opera singer, and then you've got Big Ben chiming midnight. You've got some planes flying overhead and a crying baby. So all of these things are related to the sense of hearing. The touching poster incorporates the Underground's logo into the design as a bracelet. And it also has a sign in the back which says "Buy British Goods." So a kind of subtle nod to buying locally. And for the touching poster, you've got a couple cuddling up on a bench on the left-hand side. You've got dance partners, as well as someone getting a clean shave on the right-hand side. Here we have the smelling poster with Kew Gardens Pagoda as a perfume bottle. And again, they incorporate the Underground logo as the top of the perfume bottle. And in the arch, you can see a perfume shop in the background on the left-hand side. There's some flower sellers on the right-hand side and some monkeys in a zoo. In the seeing poster, the theatre binoculars suggest that London is a stage. And you can see museums, as well as a lot of sporting events like tennis, greyhound racing, ballet, and cricket. And finally, the tasting poster shows London's culinary delights. You can see some typical British delicacies like fish and chips and tea, as well as animals pinching food from plates. Another key artist in this section is Dora Batty. Born in 1891, she was one of the most prolific artists commissioned by the Underground. She designed over 60 posters for London Transport. She trained in textiles, ceramics, graphics, and book illustration. So she was very multi-talented. And from 1932, she taught in the textiles department at the Central School of Arts and Crafts. She was head of the school there for 8 years. So in her poster designs, she often depicted confident and stylish women dressed in luxurious outfits. They also often had assertive postures, highlighting their newfound independence. Dora Batty was really influenced by Hollywood movies and fashion illustrations from the time. And in this poster, you can see the figure is dressed in the latest fashions of the time, so very 1920s fashions. Details of her jumper and skirt are shown off, and you can kind of see the contours of her body. And this poster was really designed to encourage women to go for kind of walks in the countryside, but they also subtly encouraged women to go shopping as well, to kind of dress in the latest fashions. So the third section of the exhibition is on design and architecture. I really wanted to look at the influence of Art Deco on London transport design more broadly, not just on the poster design. Art Deco influenced many different areas of London transport's design, so I thought it was important to incorporate these elements as well. Public enthusiasm for the most up-to-date modes of transport and for travel itself ran high in the Deco period. Their concept of speed had captured the public's imagination, leading to streamlined modes of transport. So London Transport did actually experiment with streamlining underground trains. However, because the tube couldn't actually travel very fast in central London, they realised that streamlining had no practical benefit to the speed. But you can see in this photograph This is one of the experiments with streamlining. So this was for the 1938 tube stock, which actually ended up having a kind of flat front. So they scrapped this streamlining idea quite quickly. Frank Pick believed that all aspects of the transport system should be both functional and visually pleasing, right down to the small details. So one of my favourite areas is maquette, and I had to include some maquette in the exhibition. So this maquette design is by Joy Jarvis, and it reflected the modernity of the underground by using bold colours and geometric patterns. She also incorporates the underground logo in the design. In the 1930s, London Transport station design, architectural features, and even its bus shelters were influenced by Art Deco style. At this time, this design was described as modernist, but often featured functional, sculptural, or decorative enhancements with an Art Deco flavour. From the 1920s to the 1940s, architect Charles Holden played a major role in shaping the appearance of London. In the interwar years, he designed a series of new buildings for the expanding underground, and many of these had a distinct Art Deco features, including lights like this in Subway Town Station. Most of these stations that Charles Holden built are on the Piccadilly line, so the Piccadilly line extensions right out to the west and north of London, but also some Northern Line stations as well. Among Charles Holden's designs was 55 Broadway, the headquarters of London Underground, which was completed in 1929. Well-known sculptors were commissioned to carve large figurative reliefs directly onto the stonework of 55 Broadway. The artists included Henry Moore and Eric Armonier. Both artists produced modern sculptures with the Art Deco themes of movement and power. Holden made use of New Age materials such as concrete, glass, and steel in his underground station designs. But for the booking halls, he often incorporated more luxurious materials like bronze and marble. London's suburban growth was significantly shaped by the expansion of its transport network, which allowed people to live further from the city while still commuting for work and leisure. Many Londoners bought suburban homes, which offered more space and comfort. And the construction of the Metropolitan Railway terminus at Stanmore in 1932 spurred residential development. This included the Warren House estate, known for its Art Deco houses designed by Gerald Lacoste. So in this final section of the exhibition, we explore how Art Deco still had an influence long after its demise. Art Deco's decline was triggered by the Great Depression and the Second World War, but despite its demise, Art Deco made a fundamental impact on subsequent design and underwent a revival in the 1960s. London Transport poster artists continued to be inspired by Art Deco posters and the characteristics that made them so popular. Sleek stylized form, simplicity of line, geometric patterns, and sweeping curves continue to be used in poster design for London's public transport. A century later, Art Deco continues to be an influence, from vehicles to graphic design and interior furnishings to architecture. So thank you so much for listening on this incredibly hot day today. If you'd like to find out more, our Art Deco exhibition is on until the 25th of April of next year. You can find out more on our website as well, which is ltmuseum.co.uk. We have Art Deco guided tours, which are every Tuesday and Thursday. And also on our website, we have Art Deco stories, which are curator-authored stories on Art Deco posters. So we've recently written one about the representation of women in Art Deco posters, and we'll have more of these stories coming out as the exhibition progresses. And if you'd like to contact me, you can feel free to contact me whenever. This is my email address. It's georgia.morley@ltmuseum.co.uk. Okay, so I think we're now on to questions, so I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you so much, Georgia. That was brilliant. A really great run through of the exhibition, and I can say that because I've been there, and it's wonderful to sort of hear your perspective on it as well. Because obviously, when you go in as a sort of I don't know really a viewer, I guess the right word is, you have your own interpretation. So it's really lovely to see how you sort of see it when you're pulling it together and your sort of broader vision. I haven't got any questions yet, but I've actually scribbled a couple of things down while I was going along.
Yeah.
So you mentioned at one point that in this talk you did pick out your favourite artists as sort of representative.
Yeah.
But when you're curating an exhibition, how do you avoid just choosing your favourite objects? Because I would certainly be guilty of that.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and I think we're probably all a little bit biased when we are picking objects for our exhibitions. I think you can, when you are deciding on the objects in your exhibition, you can tell who curated which exhibition based on the objects. However, the main kind of thing we have to consider is our audiences. So we have a series of kind of different audiences that usually come to the museum, and we decide quite early on what audiences are our key audiences for a particular exhibition. So that's kind of how you tailor which objects you'd want to have in the exhibition.
Well, in that case, that leads me on to the next one then. Who were your key audience for this exhibition? Who are you hoping to attract in?
Yeah, so at the museum we have slightly strange ways of describing audiences, but one of them is experience-seeking adults. So this tends to be kind of our younger audiences that look for something more than just the kind of traditional vehicle side of the collection. They may be more interested in art and design. So our main kind of audiences are this experience seeking adults, but we also have an audience called traditional learners, who are maybe a little bit more academic. They're more interested in reading the labels, maybe less interested in the interactives. So those are our two key audiences, are experience-seeking adults and traditional learners. But I also really wanted to encourage people from more of a design background, a few more kind of students, because I think often with our temporary exhibition spaces, they're not always family friendly, and they don't always kind of encourage that in between group, the kind of students, young students.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wonderful.
that was an
Thank
aim
you.
for me.
Got a couple of questions now here.
Sure.
So Helen says, it was an amazing talk. Thank you. Are there any books you can recommend if we want to read more about this?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many books. I would recommend going to the V&A library because they have a huge amount of books on Art Deco. So that would be my first point of call, would be the National Art Library at the V&A. The V&A has quite a few publications on Art Deco. They've done a few kind of major exhibitions. So those would be my suggestions, is the V&A publications. And unfortunately, we don't have a publication for our exhibition, which I did. I tried to get the word out there, and I tried to encourage us to have a publication, but unfortunately, we don't have one for our exhibition.
There is, Helen, as well. Oh, I've got a specific book about design on the underground as well, which I can't for the life of me remember, but I will scribble down your name and I will look it up for you because it will only take me 2 minutes. My bookshelf is just out in the hallway though, so I'm not going to run and do it now. Kat would like to know, what's your background to get your amazing job?
Yeah. I think I get this question quite a lot, and I think it's probably a bit of a boring answer, but I will tell you anyway. So I studied art history at Sussex University in Brighton. So that was a 3-year degree. And then after that, I wondered what I'm going to do with my life for a little while, for a good couple of months. And then I decided to do, I was kind of encouraged to do a master's in art history and museum curating. So I stayed at Sussex University and did that. That was an additional year. And after that, I did a lot of voluntary work. So I think this is kind of the case quite often with curating. You have to do a fair amount of voluntary work at the beginning or internships. So I volunteered at the V&A, and I volunteered at the National Trust for a little while, mostly with conservation. And then I was lucky enough to get a job at London Transport Museum on a very short contract. Started off as a 3-month contract working on an exhibition, and I've really just kind of built my career from there.
Fascinating. Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you that most curators I talk to say the key is getting out and volunteering and doing internships, because you really need the experience as well as the sort
Yeah.
of obligatory museum qualification now as a master's.
Yeah.
Lachlan would like to know whether you've seen much international interest in the exhibition, particularly given there's a global interest in Art Deco at the moment.
Yeah. So I've definitely had a few people reach out. We've had someone from Australia reach out. They wanted to borrow the exhibition.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So we are hoping to tour the exhibition at some point. We don't know exactly to where. Potentially Australia, potentially Japan. But that is to be confirmed at the moment. And I'm also doing a talk to the Chicago Art Deco Society in a couple of months. So yeah, a few international, international people have reached out, which is really nice, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so iconic, though, isn't it? The London transport, and sort of tied in with history. I can see where it's been popular. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, and then we have another one. Emma T says, you mentioned you have an interest in moquette. Can you tell us more about the moquette deco designs of the interwar period?
Yeah.
And do you have a personal interest in Art Deco?
Mm.
Are you a
Yeah.
collector?
I'm a collector. I'll answer your last question first. I definitely have a personal interest in Art Deco. This was why I suggested the exhibition. It's the first exhibition at London Transport Museum that is actually my idea. So yeah, I've always been fascinated in Art Deco. It's one of my favorite movements. So I've definitely got an interest, but I don't have a personal collection yet. I live in a 1-bedroom flat in London, so I don't think I have the room for a personal collection yet. But as I mentioned, my grandma's got a few really nice small items, which which I've kind of got my eye on. Maquette, yes. So I did a research project on maquette for about a year. Textiles is definitely a really it's my kind of area of interest. And the main artists of the interwar period are Enid Marks, who you might know. She's a textile designer and a poster designer. And she designed beautiful, very kind of geometric maquette designs for the underground. And another key artist is Marion Dawn, who was married to Edward McKnight Calfer, who's a poster artist. And Marion Dawn also created about 5 or 6 designs for London Transport Network, again, mostly on the underground, but really modern designs. She was quite known for doing carpets and rugs, but her maquette designs were particularly effective as well. Feel free to email me, because I could talk about maquette for probably days.
And I hang on, just scrolling back up a little bit. Someone asks, can we buy copies of some of the posters, which I believe you can.
Yes, you can. So our shop website is currently undergoing they're basically getting a new shop website. So you can't buy them in the online in the shop, but you can physically buy them in Covent Garden, so you can go into the shop, and there's a variety of different options, so you can buy quite a lot of the posters are available as print to order. Yeah.
Ooh, print to order, that's dangerous. It's for me anyway. Right, and then final question is, were jobs advertised in with using the sort of same Art Deco style for on the underground as well? So I guess I guess job adverts, but
Yeah, really interesting question. So no, not actually in the 1920s and 30s. So a lot of the recruitment posters that we have in our collections don't really come around until the 40s, so after the Second World War. That was mostly because there were more shortages of staff after the Second World War, so they really needed to drive recruitment. So that's when you see the recruitment posters coming in between the 40s and the kind of 70s, but not so much in the 1920s and 30s.
fantastic. Thank you. I think that is everything. I think I've scrolled through everything. So Um, I would just again like to say thank you so much, Georgia. It was really fascinating, and also the extra information that you managed to cram into the answers to the questions as well. Um, I am going to leave everyone to their evening shortly, but I just wanted to mention a couple of our upcoming events that we've got coming up in at the end of July. We've got trackside transformation, mainline railway station architecture. So if we're sticking with the transport theme, and again, transport related, I don't know what's going on this year. It must be a year of transport. Something we're looking at Art Deco in the air, and that's on the 29th of September. I also know that we have another preservation committee event coming up in the sort of in a the format that we had last time, which the name escapes me now. There'll be a group of panelists talking about different things to do with preservation, but it hasn't been fixed a date yet. But I think that is it for now. Everyone who signed up will also get a link to watch this over the next couple of days. Thank you very much for joining us on this very hot evening, and I will say goodbye to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.